Here's the yarn you're going to need for this project. You're going to need 4 main colors. So you need a fair amount of all 4 of these. I'm using a light pink, a lavender, a nice dark magenta, and a really bright green, which adds a great pop of color occasionally. This is all fairly lightweight yarn, and these are all exactly the same brand, so these are all exactly the same weight. The other accent yarns I use kind of go all over the place. So for this yarn, I am using a 2.5mm hook, which is my favorite one for these projects. For the other yarns you use, the key thing is you can use the same hook. So the weight isn't nearly as important as the fact that it works well with the same hook. Then it tends to keep everything together. You just need the weight in the same family or close, but it doesn't have to be exact. So these are the 4 main ones you need. But it's also good to have some accent colors that you can play around with. You don't need a lot of these, so scrap yarn works great. One thing that's really nice to have is a variegated yarn or something with some kind of color change in it. So here I'm going to be using this blue and white sort of dappled yarn, and this is a different weight. It's actually a different type of yarn altogether. It's more like a ribbon than a yarn, but it works very well in this pattern, and again it works with the same size hook, so that's sort of key. So having a variegated yarn, something like that, really is great. Next up I have just a light blue color, and this is same basic material. It is a cotton yarn, but it is a different weight. It's actually a little bit thicker than the other ones, but it works pretty well again with the same hook, and so it goes well with the rest of them. It's not important that everything's exactly identical size, you just want them to play nice together. Another one I may try, I actually haven't done it in this pattern yet, so I will give it a shot, and I'm hoping it will work out, is a textured yarn. This is actually for making like washcloths or scrubby things, but I love the color. It's got some nice sheen to it, and it's got a little texture, and I've used this before in other patterns with this same hook, so I'm hoping it will work well here. So these are my accent ones. It's never going to be more than a round or 2 with these, and they don't connect up to the main pattern, so you really can do anything you want for these 3 yarns. So again, we have 4 main and at least 3 accent colors. You can use more for those little pops of color around. I'll let you know when they happen, but this should get you through everything you need for the pattern. For the start of our mandala, we're going to use a magic circle. So it is a little tough to see how to do this with this tiny yarn that I'm using, so I'm going to post another video that shows it with a heavier weight yarn. I will go through it here, but again, if you've never done one before, it is tough to see. There are a lot of different ways to do a magic circle. This is not the only one, so if you use a different technique, obviously go with what you've done before. But for me, this is what I do. I take the yarn I'm going to use, and with 2 fingers I place it here with the tail of a few inches, and then I wrap it down on the back side of my fingers and back up where I crisscross it. So let me get some yarn here. So again, I lay it down over my fingers, bring it back behind them, back up, crisscross it, and then back down straight. So on this side, if I hold it with my fingers here, I have an X here and 2 parallel-ish lines here. So to start, I put my hook under the first one, grab the second one, and bring up a loop with that. Now you just have to hold this for a second and get your working yarn set on your hand. Now to lock this in, you notice I just sort of have this held kind of carefully here. To lock it in, a chain stitch will hold it. So it's still, you know, pretty loose, but that's what you want. You've got your loop with the tail here and the chain to lock it. Now I don't count that chain towards my count. What I want now is 8 single crochet around this. So going around both the circle and the tail, 8 single crochet. So 1, 2, yarn stuck. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And it's important that you went around both the circle and this tail, because now we're going to pull the tail to bring the two ends together. So we just pull that and our ends come together. It's a little loose circle right there. You want to pull this as tight as you can without tearing the yarn, which unfortunately I often do. So let me get this a good yank. Oh, and it slipped nicely there. That should mean that the circle is nicely secured, but I never trust a magic circle. I always go through later and stitch it together with the tail here, put it on a needle, go around a few times and tie it in a knot just to secure it. So what you want to do now is join the two ends together with a needle join. Now, most of the time we do this, we're going to go ahead and work into the first single crochet that we see there, but this time I'm actually going to work into the second single crochet. So I'm going to cut my yarn. I'm going to pull the tail through so it's here. And now I'm going to work into not this first single crochet, but the second one. So what you want to do is put your hook from back to front through both loops. Grab this tail here, not the one from the center of the circle, but the one that we just cut. And pull that through both loops from back to front. I'm going to bring that back to the front here again just so I can grab it. Now I'm going to go to the last single crochet here, and I'm going to go from back to front just through the back loop only, not both loops like the first one, back loop only. I'm going to grab that yarn and pull it through, and this will give us a join that mimics a single crochet, so that here it's tough to tell because it's so tiny, but in future ones you won't be able to tell where you joined the two ends together because it just looks like a single crochet from the rest of them. So this should give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to work into. That's why we go into that second one, not the first one. We're kind of covering up one of them so that we keep 8 stitches to work into. We don't end up with 9. So this is our beginning, our magic circle. Like I said, what I do now is secure this, and you just want to be careful. You want to keep this thing you just did the needle join with, you want to leave that tail out. We're going to use that, we're just going to hold it in the stitches. The one you want to secure with is that one that was inside the circle. So put a needle on this, and I'm just going to keep dropping this because it's so tiny, I'm sorry. Put a needle on this, run it around a few times underneath these stitches, at least once around, tie a knot and secure it, and that should make sure that your circle never pops open, because they do from time to time, and it's always frustrating when they do. So this is a magic circle. Like I said, if you are new to them, I am posting another video that shows you how to do those with larger yarn that should be a little easier to follow. So that is our magic circle. We're going to start with round 1 and a new color in just a second. All right, for round 1, I'm going to go ahead and join one of those accent colors, the light blue one here. So for round 1 and everything after this, we do our stitches in the back loop only, which frees up the front loops for us to put other stitches into it as overlay stitches. So again, I'm sorry, these first rounds are the toughest ones to do because they are so tiny and they're kind of hard to show here. But what you want to do is join in any stitch, doesn't matter which one, you're going to join with that back loop only. And this is the way we join yarn for everything here. We're going to pull up a loop and then chain, and that will count as our first stitch. So we always start with a single crochet. That counts for the first repeat, or for this as the first single crochet, that chain stitch. So for this round, we're going to do an increase in every stitch, which just means 2 single crochet every stitch. So that counts as 1. I'm going to put another one here in this same stitch, so that's 2. We're going to do 2 in this one. and all the way around. So go ahead, put 2 stitches in every, 2 stitches in every stitch, an increase in every one, and I'll meet you at the end here to show you how to do the needle join for this round and every round after that. It's slightly different than the magic circle. Okay, you should have 16 single crochet going around your piece right now. To do the needle join, this is the way you'll do it for all rounds from this point on. Like I said, it's a little different than the magic circle. Go ahead and cut your yarn. I always leave ridiculously long tails. You actually don't need that much yarn, but I tend to overestimate and just have these huge tails sitting around. But you know, whatever you're comfortable with. So just cut the yarn, leaving a tail, and pull it through the stitch so you have it right here. Now what we're going to do to join, we're going to ignore the chain stitch and go into the first single crochet. So with the magic circle, we went into the second one. Now you want the first one. So you're going to take your hook from back to front through both loops of this first single crochet. Grab the tail and pull it through both. This is called a needle joint because you usually put the yarn on a needle and do this. I just find it easier to continue using my hook. So pull it through both loops. So now the yarn's on the back. I'm just going to bring it to the front again so I can grab it for the last part of this. Now you're going to go to the last single crochet from the round, and this time from back to front only go through the back loop. Grab that yarn and pull it through to the back, and that gives you a join that mimics the top of a single crochet, so that ultimately you can't really see where you joined. As for the tails here, what I tend to do is I hold them inside my stitches so that I don't have to weave them in later. That's up to you. You can just hold them inside the back of your stitches and carry them that way. When the piece gets bigger, that's easier to do. When it's tiny, it's a little tough. Or you can go ahead round by round, or just at the end, put a needle on them and weave in your tails then. So that is the end of round 1. We're going to go with round 2 in a second and switch to the nice bright green yarn. Round 2, we're going to connect the bright green yarn, and for this round and most after that, we're going to have a specific point we want to start in and then work by repeats. So there's just a few stitches that I give you the pattern for, and then you repeat that 8 times around. Generally speaking, 8 times around, though there are some other ones, but that way you don't have to go through the whole thing with me every single time. So what we want to do for this one is join in the first stitch in any increase. So we have these 2 stitches in every one from the round below. I'm going to join in the first stitch in an increase, so back loop only. Draw up your loop, and your chain counts as your first single crochet. I'm going to hold the tail inside my stitches so I don't have to deal with it later. And for this round, you're going to have 1 single crochet followed by an increase. So 1 single crochet, that's our connect here, followed by an increase. So 2 in the same. And I just hold that tail inside the stitch, do the stitch right around it, and it secures it fairly well inside the stitches. So the repeat again is 1 single crochet followed by an increase, and you're going to do that 8 times around, and then I'll join you for the needle join again so you can see again how to do that. I do that for the first few rounds, and then you're on your own after that. So 1 single crochet followed by an increase, go all the way around with that pattern, and I'll see you at the end. Now for the needle join, you're going to cut the yarn and pull it through the stitch here so you have it ready to go. You're going to go to not the chain stitch but the first single crochet, and we're going to go from back to front through both loops. Grab your yarn and pull it through. Since we want to grab the yarn in the front again, I'm just going to bring it back to the front, hold it there. Now go to your last single crochet, so the last stitch of the round. Go through just the back loop from back to front, not both loops this time, and pull it through the middle of that guy. And that gives us a connection that looks like a single crochet. So that's what we've got here at the end of round 2. We're ready for round 3 now.